Hi, David. Can you hear us?
Yes, I sure can hear you. How you doing?
How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, it's hard. Greetings, greetings to everybody.
We can see your precious cat in the background there, David.
You've got a couple in the background here. A couple of cats.
No, that's not a real cat. That's my paper mache cat.
All right. Okay. You've been keeping busy?
Yes, I have been keeping busy. I've been doing quite a lot of these interviews, Zoom interviews, actually. I'm delighted. It's been fun. Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
And I got a new radio show on Friday nights, and then I have my Disco Juice on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just signed a wonderful new deal with Simon Dunmore and Defected Records, Glitterbox Records, for a bunch of remixes, and
brilliant.
Things are moving right along for a man of my advanced stage. I'm very happy.
Yeah. You're doing well, no stop.
It's all happening.
Well, yes. Excuse me. I always say that, I'm very old, but I'm always glad that I didn't die 10 years ago, because I wouldn't have experienced any of this great stuff that's happening now.
Yeah,
everything in its own perfect timing. You can't push these things, and I'm around to take advantage of them.
Yeah,
and I take the action, and I come up with the thoughts, and I take the actions, and I just throw it out there to the universe, and it seems to be responding in kind, so.
Yeah. It's very, very exciting times, isn't it? There's a lot of a real revival for the love of the music again, a lot of new audiences.
Well, yes, indeed. And when this started happening about 6 years ago, I realized that it was a different re-interest in the music. It was really wild. Joey Negro put out that remix package, the two albums,
Yeah, Remix with Love.
They did it. It was number one, and the Cathedral was just number one for the year on TrackSource and Beatport.
I love that song.
It's a 45-year-old record. How could it be number one? But it was number one. And most of I was going to say most of the demographic on that, they were all under 35. They're not. I was delighted to find out they were just not a bunch of old disco people, in their 60s and 70s, trying to recapture their youth. They were new listeners, new people. It was a new record to them, So
what do you think's going to spark this big interest in this sound again?
In what? In cathedrals?
And like disco music in general, it seems to have come back in a really big way over the last few years.
Yes, it does. It really did. And unfortunately, the virus came around. I remember this time last year, the fall of last year, New York City was opening wide open. I mean, not so much in Manhattan because the rents are so high, but in disco land, Brooklyn, it was like every 2 weeks there was a new disco, and you go out there on the weekends and they'd be standing in line around the blocks. It was very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And then Ibiza last year was just on fire. And then all the clubs, throughout, in Japan and Berlin and worldwide, it had gotten crazy. It was not the same as it was in the 70s, but it was just as big and just as exciting and just as authentic,
Yeah.
And then I was so delighted, just thrilled, and it was back again. There was a tremendous reinterest. Like I said, I'm glad I've lived to be long enough to be revered like this, because if I were dead, I wouldn't get to have this happy experience.
You're a young guy.
Huh?
You're a young guy, David. You're a young guy. You've still got many years yet.
Oh, you think so? As I was having, Nicky Siano, the DJ Nicky Siano.
Oh, yeah.
Nicky, I had lunch with him last Friday.
Right.
And we were saying, I was telling him about my deal with Defected,
Yeah.
And it was like a 7-year deal, and I said, do you think I'm going to live another 7 years? But we're talking the 80s now. If I live another 7 years, I'm in my 80s.
Yeah.
He said, well, you're doing okay now, so let's not discourage you. Really,
the disco keeps you young.
Disco keeps you young.
Yeah, but I'm like I said, I'm glad I'm around. I'm glad I lasted.
How did that come about, David? How did that the contract and things with Defected come about then?
Well, with Joey, several years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago, I was all the original multi-tracks reverted back to me. There was a law that was passed.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I went to the court, and I found out that that they belonged to me. And so then I tracked them down.
Right.
And my sister had passed away recently, and she left me some money.
Right.
And so they were all there in Abbey Road in London, all the original multi-tracks, the analog.
Wow.
And so I said, I got the money now, and that belonged to me, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But so I took my 12 favorite tracks, and I had them digitally converted.
Right.
The stems. They refer to them now as stems.
Yeah.
So, and then I just sat on them for a while because, through the years, Cathedrals has sustained itself. My career has sustained itself, not through remixes, because they started doing remixes in the 80s and the 90s. So it wasn't that. And, but it sustained itself through re-edits and sampling.
Yeah.
Hundreds of records.
Yeah.
And it seemed to keep Cathedrals going. And then I started listening. And then I didn't want to get too avant-garde with the remixes. And I just thought not too many, experimental changes.
Yep.
And so I was watching Joey Negro, what he was doing. And he seemed to be pretty good at taking the original and making it a better record and still maintaining the basic soul of the record. So
definitely.
So about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I sent an email to Joey, just out of the blue. I just got his email from his website. And I said, would you be interested in doing a remix? And here are the 12, tracks I have. And he got back with me that afternoon. He said, yes, And so the next day I had an agreement, and he was so fair. The man is such a gentleman, and he was such an honest, fair guy. Yeah. There was nothing I could change. It was perfect. It was like, oh, wow. And I'm 50-50 on everything. And it was great news. Yeah. So I let him go to town. So it took him about 1.5 years to do that. And I'll tell you, he does a splendid job. I mean, I can listen to it now 2 years later. And I still get thrilled, with all the other contributors that he brought in to do the other remixes. I mean, just tremendous stuff.
He captures the magic. He saves the magic, and he just kind of refreshes it a little bit for modern listeners.
Absolutely, and I'm very delighted. Everybody, and as a matter of fact, he got a lot of feedback from all my original DJ friends who just said, nobody's done it better. Nobody could have done it better than you, Joey. And, really, I think it's true. Yeah. So then, in the process of then I did a remix project with a friend of mine, Chris Cowley, out of Berlin, Germany, Wiesbaden, around there. And unfortunately, it was tracks from Forces of the Night.
Right.
And they were just flawless, magnificent stuff.
Yeah.
And then he was feeling, he had been very, very sick, and he was in constant pain. He had been in an automobile accident, and he was having trouble with his spine, and he had several operations.
God.
And he was in such pain that he couldn't stand anymore, and he couldn't sit anymore, but it was very fragile health.
Yeah. And
we had just completed this whole remix thing called Revelation.
Yeah.
And KHB Records out of Berlin,
Yep.
And so he but I wasn't depending upon that label to do anything, because they're not a disco-centric label, but they're a releasing company. They release everything. But I was counting on Chris for promotion, because he really knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And if he promoted a track on Mixcloud, if I a Disco Do show, overnight it would be like 137,000 streams. I don't know what secret he had, but he was able to. He had mastered that internet promotion thing with dance music.
Yep.
And he was at this very moment of mastering it, and I felt that I would take advantage of that, and he would make it a hit. He was the one who was going to make it a hit. And because, if you don't, no matter how good it is, if you don't have somebody promoting it correctly, it falls through the cracks, because there's so much out there. It just simply goes by so fast.
It's such a different world now, David, isn't it? For promotion and things, it's if you don't have a social media presence, then it kind of gets lost in the...
Correct. So Chris was really feeling. He goes into the hospital. Germany has that single payer health plan. Where everybody gets covered. Mm-hmm. And if you want better care than you're getting from the government, you have to pay out of your own pocket. You know what I'm saying? So if you want plastic surgery, or if you're worried about something serious like a liver transplant or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
Kidney transplant. You know, and if you got the money, you pay for a good doctor of your choice.
Yep.
Because there are plenty of them in Germany.
Yep.
But they're very expensive. Or you go, like, you fly to the States here and have it done. You know, it's like, you know. So you had that option. But Chris didn't have that much money. So he was at the mercy of the system, of the medical system in Germany.
Right.
And he went, and I was so worried about the doctors. Leave it to me, you know what I'm saying? Because a good doctor is the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he was a real fragile health. And he went in to have this operation on his spine, hopefully to relieve this tremendous pain. You know, in Germany, you can't have painkillers. They don't give you painkillers. No oxycodone, nothing like that. I don't know what it's like over there, but you can't, like here, you're very hard to get now with prescriptions, you know, the opiates.
Yeah.
In Germany, you can't get them at all.
Right.
Unless you're in the hospital and you're so tremendous pain, you're on a morphine drip or something, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And the doctor is right there. That's the only way you can get it.
Yeah.
So he was in constant pain. So he went in pre-op, and they sent him home. And they said to him, you're not well enough to go through your operation. You know, you just have to eat more, you have to gain more weight, you have to, you know, you're not healthy enough physically to sustain an operation like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went home and he tried to get himself healthier with vitamins and drinks and, you know, healthy drinks and whatever. And then he went back about 3 or 4 weeks later to the doctor. They still said, well, you're better than you were, but you're still not. And he said, listen, I'm in such pain, I want to have the operation.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm crossing my fingers. We had just spent a year doing remixes, you know, and I didn't want to, it's not all about me, but, you know, oh my God, and all the other remixes who were so much a party to this, and everybody worked their butt off. And so he went into the hospital, and he went through the operation, and he was and he was there. The second day he had a stroke.
Oh God. Right.
And so he's been a vegetable ever since, just like a vegetable. I mean,
that's tragic.
So I don't know how he's still alive. Yeah. So he's in a wheelchair, and he's in care, and he's in constant care, but he's not there. You know, he's really not there anymore.
He can't move the project forward. God, that's a shame. Sorry to hear that.
Disaster, yeah. And so that left the project and everybody attached to the project. They released it at the mercy of the KHB, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with it. And it was a tremendous disappointment.
Yeah.
But I miss Chris tremendously, and he's a wonderful man. And
it's a shame that.
And he was just about to peak with his talent and his internet presence and his remix project, and just unbelievable. And just
it's incredible how much the internet brings people together as well now, David, isn't it? Like you can hand those projects over and you can collaborate.
Oh, it does. You know what? It would never happen 15 years ago. Yeah, but Chris reached out to me and he played some of his stuff, and I sent him the stems. And I was in touch with all the remixers, and just like this, like your next door. It's like your next door, and it's wonderful. It went, you know, without the internet. I say without the internet, the resurgence of interest in disco as a genre would never have happened. Yeah,
definitely. I think the internet's got a lot to play with.
Yeah, really locked into the kids. So, so then I was so discouraged. I was crying.
Yeah.
Still a loss. It's still a tremendous loss in my heart. I mean, there's no way I can save it. I mean, I know, but it's there and it's done and it's flawless and it's out there if anybody wants to. Download it and have it. You know?
Yep.
So then, in the process of doing all the other stuff, I just didn't have anything else in mind. Yeah. And but Dr. Packer, Greg Packer, out of Perth, Australia. You know, Dr. Packer.
Yep.
He had done a remix for Joey Indiscreet for the Resurrection Project.
Right.
And I had reached out to him. I didn't know him, but I reached out to him at one point and I thanked him. And I thanked all the remixers that contributed, you know. 3 or 5 of them, you know. So, and so he got back. So we started friendly. And then I had Hot Jungle Drums and Voodoo Rhythm, which was a huge hit for me. The multi-tracks were lost. Somebody stole them, or they got dumped and threw them in the garbage. But they were the one sets of multi-tracks that I didn't have.
Okay.
None. But I had a couple of pieces. I had a cassette of the original rhythm track. I had a wild track of my vocal, a wild track of the strings for some reason.
Yep.
and I've had the 2-track master, digitally converted. And so I said to Packer, I said, would you be interested in it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. Taking what I have, the pieces I have, and reconstructing a record for me. What you'd be doing is you'd be taking what I've got and making the record out of nothing. Really, because there was nothing.
Yeah.
And so he said, sure. And this was like the end of March, beginning of April. So he had nothing else to do, because he hadn't been working. He had some work since March, So I said, you have nothing else to do. You're sitting around at home, And I said, so you want to work on it? Yeah. And so he said, sure. So I sent all the pieces out to him, and I didn't hear from him for about a month. And then he sent me something. And I have to tell you something. I got thrills. I just, I couldn't listen to it without going, oh my God. He sampled the bass line, and he did an inspired, magnificent job, and an instrumental.
Dr. Packer's another one. He captures that magic, and he just kind of revamps.
Oh my! You have no idea. You have no idea. And I was more excited about that remix that he created from nothing than and all the other previous ones. Mm-hmm. Really, I'd listen to it and I'd say, I can't believe it. I want to be 18 again and on the dance floor doing poppers, Really.
You sound more inspired than ever, David. You sound more inspired than a long time, anyway.
Well, it was a terrific remix. And so then I said, but he had always wanted to remix Cathedrals, Packer. Yeah. And nobody had remixed it except Joey. And so I said, and he had done a re-edit.
Right.
Prior to his working with Joey on Indiscreet. And Joey said to him, would you mind not releasing your re-edit? Because it's going to conflict with my Cathedrals, your Cathedrals re-edit. Yeah. But Packer sent me his re-edit, and it was right on the money. It was a re-edit.
I need to hear this.
Right, so he never played it. He never let anybody know about it.
My God.
So I said, okay, I'll send you Cathedrals.
Yeah.
So then I sent him the multi-tracks for Cathedrals, and he took 3 or 4 weeks, and I sent them back to me, and I said, wow. First of all, to me, at this point, my Cathedrals is Cathedrals is Cathedrals is Cathedrals. Listen, excuse me. I know everybody loves it. It's the classic and yada, 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 but it is what it is, Yeah. And so he sent me his remix and his dub mix, and they were flawless.
Yep.
But I was so excited about Hot Jungle Drums. You can't believe. So I said to him, I said, well, we got 4. We got a dub mix of Cathedrals, dub mix of Jungle Drums, remix of each. I said, it's up to you.
Yeah.
I said, we can go to a million places. And I said, everybody's looking for something of mine.
Yeah.
But what would you feel comfortable? Because because my feeling was to his records.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They're his records. So what would he feel comfortable with? If he wanted me to make suggestions, I could go to I could go to Midnight Riot. I could go back to Joey. I could 100 places.
Yeah.
So he said, I'd like to be with Glitterbox. Just went public, and they got fortune money there, and it's they're doing other things other than depending upon live disco play, because the Glitterbox parties are over for now, but they've expanded their operation to an extent where it doesn't have to get played at a disco to be successful.
Yeah.
So I said, we'll send it to Simon and Schumann, or whatever their names. Actually, I didn't even know who they were. If they're interested, do it. And I had known Simon Dunmore for years, but he had more or less taken a back seat to the new A&R guy, the new business guy. They're huge. Seamus
Haji. Yeah, Seamus Haji. Yeah, we had him on last week, funnily enough. He was talking to us last week.
Yeah. I just did an interview with him. Lenny Fontana just did an interview with him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yesterday.
The man to know, because you done an interview with Lenny.
He's a nice guy, do you know? I don't know. I don't even know him. He's just, when he writes me, he goes, he calls me sir. It's such an honor to be, dear sir. And I said, call me DC, So he sent it to Seamus, and then Seamus sent it to there's another guy there. Well, Simon too. The three of them. There's 3 of them. And they came back with me, and they said, we want to put it out, and we want to do more mixes, and we want to do another project with you and with Greg. and we're going to offer you a lot of money, and
I'm going to turn it down.
And
it's great to see. It's great to see that you're working with Glitterbox, David, because they're doing Glitterbox are doing incredible things, and it's great to see. And Defected, it's great to see that you're on their radar and you're working with those guys, because it's just inspiring to see what the guys are doing right now. It's incredible.
Well, I'll tell you something. So I got a personal note from Simon, and they're putting both tracks out, and they're going to do a huge, tremendous remix project on Cathedrals, and they're going to put out a booklet and a video, and then they're going to put out Hot Jungle Drums, and then they want more from us.
Yeah.
You know, for the next 7 years. That's what I was saying to Nicky Siano. I said, do you think I'll last for 7 years to 7 years of remixes? But, you know, so it couldn't be better. It just couldn't be better. And I can't wait to have Hot Jungle Drums come out.
Yeah.
And I sent a note to Greg the other day, and I said, you know, as far as I'm concerned, because we're just excited beyond belief. Because I'm telling you, they got a lot of money, and they want to prove a point, and they want to make cathedrals, you know. I don't know what they can do with it, but they're really excited. And
definitely sounds like it's been a very exciting time.
What?
It definitely sounds like it's been a very exciting time right now. So much happening.
Yes, for me, sure, yeah. And so I never wanted to make new records, you know. And people would say, for the last 10 years, they'd say, "Oh, why don't you go in and make another record? Why don't you go in and make another record?" And I said, "No, forget it, because you know what? It's not that I couldn't do it. I sound the same. And you know, I'm an old man, and I still sound the same. I sound like a kid." But you know, the trouble is that no, really, I did a show for about 2 years ago for Louis Vega. His closing party cruise here in New York at CLO. Yep. And I did Cathedrals, and I did Indiscreet, and a couple from Italy came up, and she said to me, "Oh, she said, I love your voice." She said, "You sound like an angel." And she said,
"That's a compliment, that." John tells me that all the time.
No,
you sound like an angel, but you're an old man. It's like I said, "Oh, thanks a lot." Yeah. But so I never wanted to do another record because I've lived through it. You know. I've seen Gloria Gaynor want to do another record. I've seen all these people like Donna Summer. She was so unhappy that she wasn't top 10, number one. She always wanted another record. And I remember saying to her, I said, you know, you can make the best record on the planet.
Yeah.
And it'd be better than anything you've ever made with your career. I mean, with your career, untouchable.
Yeah.
Boundless hits. I mean, incredible songs, incredible records. It could be the best one you've ever made in your life. And you present it to a record company, Donna, and they're going to say, "Oh, I want to hear Last Dance." "Oh, I love to love you, baby." Because after a period of time, they don't care. And it's hard work making a record. I don't care. And I remember when I was a kid, living in the studio for days, you know, and I loved it, and it was part of my life, and I wouldn't have given it up for the world. Like I keep saying, a man of my advance, I don't want to live in the studio for days. I don't want to do it at home in my living room. I have a studio I work with, but you know what? It's a lot of work. It's extra money. It's a lot of creative energy. And for me to work for a month and a half, 2 months with a producer, and in the studio and everything, and then have it come out and people say, "Oh, can we play Cathedrals again?" or "Can we play with them dance?" I mean, it would break my heart. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I don't care. I'm not going to make another new record. But the thing is that what else have I got to do except remixes? And it's good enough because nobody's remixed any of my stuff for 40 years. Yeah. And I've control of the multi-tracks. And so now I can do it the right way. Now, like my deal with Joey, Flawless, and now with Simon and Defected and Seamus.
Yep, brilliant.
People. It couldn't be better.
Going back to when you guys wrote Cathedrals or the Cathedrals album, David, talk us through what that was like then. Back then, where did you guys actually record the album? And thinking back to the early days that all started out.
We recorded it in New York City here at a studio called Groove Sound.
Okay.
And it was a 16-track. And Aram Sheffman and I were working together on the concept album. And and so we went and recorded it here, engineer. And it was an interesting moment with Cathedrals when we finished it. when we left the studio, Aram said to me, Aram had a lot of hits with the Getting You Ran, 10-Wheel Drive. You know, he was a rock band guy. You know?
Yeah.
And Michael Zager was on the session.
Right.
And so Aram said to me, he said, "It's the best fucking record I've ever made in my life." And he said, "I don't think I'll make another one as good." And Steve Christo, and the promotion man said, "It's a classic. It's a classic. It's a classic." You know, this is leaving the studio. And Aram said to Steve, "Well, you know what that means? A classic. Nobody's going to make any money for 40 years. And he was right. He was right.
Yes.
So it came out, and it was like, it was a hit right away. It was just so different, so unique. And interesting, oddly enough, it was, it took off in the gay clubs here in the States, but the rest of the world, it was the black clubs. The black clubs were playing.
Yeah.
In the UK, and it was the black R&B clubs that were playing it. And that's where it got started, like and on pirate radio there. Yeah. And, so that's where it got started there. Yeah, and it took a long time. It was a long time coming.
Yep. What is the thinking behind it, Dave? If you don't mind my asking, what is the story behind Cathedrals? And if it's too personal, you don't have to tell us.
No, it's not. It's a story. It's an observation. Cathedrals is a metaphor. Of course, it has nothing to do with religion. And it's an observation on the sexual mores at the time and the social mores at the time. You know, looking for Mr. Goodbar, the dating scene, the disco scene. It was all about drugs and picking up people and going to bed with them. It's not just gay. It was everything. It was everything.
Okay.
Studio 54 wasn't gay, and Infinity wasn't gay, and at the end of the night, you go to the back at 7 o'clock in the morning. Jim Burgess would say, "Oh, my cat's going to jump. Don't jump. Don't jump. Don't jump. Get up. Sorry.
I bet it's up.
Hey, he's going to see.
The guest appearance.
Yeah, he's going to jump on the fireplace. So in any case, it was about that. It was about an observation on the sexual morality at the time, and they made movies about it, and that was about it. And
so I've listened to it quite a few times. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to figure out the lyrics and what's actually. I dig quite deep into songs. I'm thinking I need to ask the man himself what actually is the thinking behind this song.
Well, yeah, it was like it was life for me, and like the disco life kind of thing. Yeah. And it was okay, and it was a very honest record, and it applied to everybody. I mean, if you had been there, you would have been doing it too, So,
yeah. Did you move out to New York quite young, DC? Did you head out to New York?
I grew up in Connecticut. Chester, Connecticut, which is about. Can you stop? Excuse me. I don't.
Not that cat out. I think he wants to collect the camera.
He's never done that before. He's just like he wants attention.
He likes the accent.
I grew up in Connecticut. What?
So he wants the spotlight.
Yes, he does. I grew up in Connecticut, about 2 hours outside of New York City, and when I was a kid growing up, I was back and forth between Boston. I used to party in Boston. I used to party in New York. Yeah. And then when I got out of high school, I came to New York City in 1969, and I've been ever since then.
God, what was it like then, DC? What was New York like? Late 60s, early 70s? Can you sum that up?
Right. That was
in one sentence.
The late 70s and the early 60s. Well, it evolved, because when I came to New York City, I remember one of the first weekends I was here, I had a friend who invited me to go into Woodstock. So it was peace, love, and weed and hallucinogenics,
Yeah.
And the seasons of love in San Francisco and wear flowers in your hair. And so then it evolved. It got New York got very funky, and it got, because it ran out of money, and it got very dangerous, and there was a lot of crime.
Yeah.
And then the disco started opening up, and it was not a good period for New York City. Yeah, the city itself. But then the disco thing started happening, and but it's still bad. It's still not very nice to live here. But I would never move anyway,
Yeah.
And how did you actually get into making the music then?
So for years, I had started making records when I was in high school. and pop records, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I would make them off and on through the years. And then I had pretty much given up making records. I mean, I have there's a CD that just came out of all the stuff that I recorded prior to Cathedrals, and it's called if you want to go to eBay and type in Matthew Reed, MATTHEWREID.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff on CD that you can buy. So I had been around, you know.
Yeah.
I had gone to art school, and I was working in the entertainment industry with my graphic design or whatever. I worked with John Lennon, Bruce Springsteen, and Janis Ian. And all the while, I would get a record deal here, a record deal there, but I never was successful. And so,
well, did you work? Did you work as a musician, DC? Did you work as a session musician with some of those guys? Yeah.
No, I worked as an art director. art director.
Oh, right. You were just around them.
Huh?
You were just around guys like that then?
No, I was around them because I was doing album covers and portfolios and stuff like that, and advertising for them. Yeah, so no, because that's how I made my money when I.
Did you say for John Lennon as well, DC? Did you see?
John Lennon, John Lennon, yeah, sure, yeah.
Thank God.
And he was a big disco fan. John was a big disco fan before it was fashionable. Yeah, of course. It's interesting because when I was working with him, I went up to the Dakota to work on a project with him. Yeah. And he had this huge bedroom, and it was all in black. And at the end, it was huge. It had like a triple sized bed. And at the other end of the room, there was a big jukebox. You know, a jukebox with all the lights and everything. Yeah, yeah. And every Monday, he used to go to have his secretary, Yoko's secretary, go down to Colony Records, which is the big store in New York City, Colony Records, for the original one of the big disco outlets, the first ones. But that was before the 12-inch. When I was working with John, it was before the 12-inch existed. And he used to have all his secretary buy all the disco records that were underground disco records in the 45s, and have him, and his jukebox. And he used to have a disco jukebox. Oh, right. He always used to say to Yoko, really? And it's not so impossible to believe, you know, and he always used to say to Yoko, you could be the queen of disco, you could be the queen of disco. And she didn't want anything to do with it. Right. And then the sad part of the story is he finally signed with Geffen, and he finally got Yoko to do a disco record, Walking on Thin Ice. Right. And that was the night he was killed. Oh, God. Yeah, that was the night he was worried. Getting murdered. He came home that night from the session, and he finally was so happy that Yoko did a disco record. He finally talked to him to doing a disco record, and he got shot. Yeah. My God. So it was a wild story, True story. So, but John was a big disco fan. And but once I was working for him for a long time, but when Yoko got pregnant, they just removed themselves. From humanity, and they isolated because she was older, and they were afraid she'd lose the baby. So so he stopped. He got sober. He didn't do drugs anymore. She didn't do drugs anymore, and they just were concerned about having the child. She's still alive, you know, and up until about last year, I used to see her in the street down here. She had an escort, and she'd be walking around. It's funny because you look at her, and she was such an international sensation. With John, and with her artwork, and with her everything, and with her sit-ins and be-ins and whatever. And you look at her now, and she just looks like a little Japanese lady. 85 years old. Looking around. DC, you two have to get together and make a record together. That's what we need. Oh, me and Yoko? Yeah. Make it happen. So that's So that's what I was doing, and then one night I had given up recording Famous Last Word about 1975. I had done a record for Kirshner Records, Donnie Kirshner, and it was so fabulous, and it was a bomb because label problems, label drama, intrigue. And so I said, that's it. Best record I've ever made, pop record. I said, fuck it, no more. I'm not going to try. And then about 18 months later, I was dancing at a club here called 12 West. I used to do a lot of drugs back in the days, part of my resume, mescaline and whatever. And I remember I was very high, and I was dancing at 12 West, and Tommy Severese was the DJ, and he put on Love to Love You Baby. Oh, yeah. And I just... what the fuck is this? You know, and the way I had been used to 18-minute records, because you have Light My Fire and I Got It Vita, because I'm from that era, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And that rock era, you know, with Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin, you know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
they all had 20-minute tracks and stuff.
Yeah.
But the way Giorgio reduced the strings and drums and is, wow, this is an inspiration. You know, I think I'd like to do one of these kind of records.
Yeah, yeah.
So then a couple of weeks later, I was with my friend Steve DeQuisto at Dave Mancuso's loft down here in Soho, and we were dancing it once again high as can be, and the dance floor. You know, David used to mix butt records. He didn't make. He used to just play one after another. He didn't segue them. You know? Yeah,
yeah.
But sometimes he'd be looking for a record and there'd be silence while he was queuing it up. And so, and now when you're really high and you're dancing and you're frantic, you know, that 3 seconds can feel like an eternity. You know? and so, not that you would know anything about that.
No, we're clean living young guys here.
And I was standing there, and then there was silence, and then David started the record, and then the entire place went scream. It was packed. It was like jams. No social distancing at that point.
Yeah.
So it was packed and jammed, and the entire place went up in screams. And Steve DeQuisto was at the Sunway. He said, "Discos are the cathedrals of now." You know, like a preacher. The cathedrals of now. And as high as I was, I said, "Gee, that sounds like a great idea for an album, a concept album."
Yeah.
And so, but I remembered it, and so then I went home, and then I had been working with Aram Sheffer on an album cover with him and Michael Zager. And I said to Aram, as an art director, I said to Aram, "I have an idea to do a disco album." And Aram was interested. Aram said, "Oh yeah, okay." So I took Aram to a couple of discos, and then I came up with Cathedrals, the song Cathedrals. But I would never come up with that title.
Yeah.
Steve Christo had screamed it out in the middle of the night. And so that's how it happened, you know. And then, unlike all my previous recordings, it was successful right out of the box. Really out of the box.
David, did you ever come into contact with David Bowie at all? Did you ever come into contact with him in New York? Or
no? Not with Bowie, no.
No, because I know he was out there, wasn't he, quite a lot?
Well, I don't know. I never got close to him, and I was never familiar with him.
God, you have brushed shoulders with a lot of people.
Bowie came from a different thing. Bowie had an extended career and went through many, many phases. And he was a star long before Cathedrals ever made it. And I'm sure he liked Cathedrals. I know a lot of those people love Cathedrals. I know Cher loved Cathedrals. I know Elton John loved Cathedrals. I know because they told me. I've run into them. You know, Cathedrals, and you know. But as far as me being a part of that celebrity, no, because that's a different thing. That comes from a different place, you know. They were huge stars, international stars, and I paled in comparison. You know?
It's been an absolute pleasure learning the history from you, DC. I must say, we love getting guests like yourself on who tell us a couple of young guys like me and John learning all about the history over here. A couple of Scottish young guys. We like to learn all about the history of, especially where the disco scene and where the house scene evolved from. You know, thanks for taking.
How did you get into disco? What's your story? How did you get into disco? How did you get into disco?
It was more. It was something called funky house.
How did you get into disco, John? Ask him first.
I would say I kind of came in more through funky house, I would say. But I don't know, disco's kind of been permeating through a lot of music over the years, even through like hip hop and things like that as well. So I've always heard bits of disco through like hip hop and house music throughout the years, and kind of generally through a funky house, and then with the disco coming back in over the last few years as well. I think it's kind of
our parents as well, DC. Our parents always drilled disco into us, I think. So we've kind of been brought up listening to disco from birth, basically, because my mum and dad are disco fiends, basically. They love it.
Oh, so you're a child of a disco union, huh?
Yeah, that is
disco love, disco drama, disco love.
With no choice.
What was your mom's favorite records?
Oh, she loved all, oh my God, Bee Gees. She was mad for the Bee Gees, but just the Earth, Wind & Fire.
Talk about Bee Gees, you can't touch the Bee Gees. Now, that's another group that had a career that spanned decades. And, I started loving the Bee Gees with "Have You Seen My Wife, Mr. Jones?" I mean, I'm a big fan. But their disco era,
yeah, Earth, Wind and Fire, bands like that.
Those records, I just,
Timeless. Absolutely timeless.
But I think in the early, kind of late 90s in the UK, there was a big, they called it funky house, but like John said, it had a lot of disco influence and loops and stuff. And then, so we get into it quite early on mixing records, probably, what would that have been? We've got about 20 years.
Yeah, at least 20 years ago, we started mixing records on like Technics decks, so kind of house music and trance music as well. We like trance music back in the day and stuff. And then it evolved the house music as well.
Yeah, and it's just gone full circle now, I think, hasn't it? It's come. The disco will never die, DC. That's the thing. It'll never die completely.
Well, there was a time there. Excuse me. There was a time there when I didn't quite know. Yeah. You have to understand that maybe you're not there. You weren't there, but me personally, I took a lot of abuse because I was disco. I did.
Yeah.
And when they were burning the records and the companies went bust and nobody wanted disco. Nobody wanted.
There was that movement that tried to.
None of us could get record deals. None of us.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite. Let's say, "Do You Want to Get Funky" was made. That guy, what's his name? Peter Brown.
Right.
He made the best records ever. Peter Brown.
Yeah, I've heard the name. Yeah.
Flawless records. I listened to his recordings and I said, "How do you do it? How do you do it?" Because he makes a different kind of dance records than I made. And I would never have been able to do what he did. And when he got with all those millions of records and all the charts on, I mean, he couldn't. He went back to Detroit and started selling real estate. You know what I'm saying? Right, Gino Socio was treated so. And here was an Italian guy from Canada, and he was brilliant. He was classically trained. And he made those great records.
Yeah.
And then when it was over, I mean, nobody even wanted to use him as a session musician. He's disco. He's disco. It was like a plague. It was like a plague.
Yeah. Because there was a lot of movements. There was a lot of movement to try to put it out of.
It was awful. And the abuse, I mean, it was like, what happened to all the millions of records that are fucking sold?
Yeah.
How can you treat me with such abuse?
Yeah.
It was like anything I did was disposable.
Yeah.
Not worthy of any kind of success. And I was really treated that way. And so there was a time there in the 80s and the 90s that I didn't even think about what I was doing. I went back to photography and art direction. I was very successful with my photography, very successful here in the city. And so I wasn't starving and I was doing very well and I was having a wonderful time as a photographer.
Yeah.
But, nobody wanted to know from me.
Look at it now. Look at it now, DC. It's gone full circle and you're brushing shoulders with the biggest label out there that's pushing this music again. It's funny how
that's the whole thing. The whole point is what goes around comes around. But you know what? I think the secret is, and I said to this earlier in this discussion, I've lived long enough to see it.
Yeah.
And I feel that people like Barry White, Sylvester, the great disco people that are no longer with, like Isaac Hayes.
Yeah.
The list can be on and on and on. They have died over the years.
Yep.
The disco people who have passed away are not here to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm, like I said, I'm tremendously fortunate, to be around, to be healthy, to be cognizant, to be able to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And to come up with an idea every once in a while,
Yeah.
If you can say, when Joey said something interesting, he said, well, man, he's my hero. Joey's my hero. Yeah. I don't care. Simon them are Defected bit fine. But without Joey, nobody would give a fuck about cathedrals.
Yeah.
I really feel that way.
Yeah, no.
He is the man who saved my ass.
Yeah.
And he is the man who really inspired a total reintroduction to my music.
Yeah.
So, but there was a discussion.
Could you tell us a little bit about your writing process as well? You mentioned earlier on about the amount of time and creative energy it takes to get into the studio and make those tracks.
Absolutely.
The process behind it. How did you kind of get started with the writing process when you were putting the tracks together?
I was writing songs ever since I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, it's natural.
And it just from one thing led to another. I mean, I didn't even think about it. Like my artwork, it was there all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I grew up, I learned how to play the piano and I learned how to play guitar. And then I'm telling you, you should get Matthew Reed, MATTHEREID. The CD is on eBay. It's I was in high school and I got my first record deal. I made some demos of some songs. A friend of mine sent it to producer Bob Crew. 4 Seasons, big, he was producing Bitch Rider and Joey's Play Wheels, 100 different acts. Just one of the most successful producers on the planet. Yeah. And he heard me and signed me when I was in high school. And when I got out of high school, I made my first record. So it was just there. Yeah. It was just there, and I just took the action, and I was fortunate enough to get the acknowledgement. Yeah. But I didn't have hits right away because something always happened. But I feel that it was meant to be. I stood there long enough. I think that inspiration when I heard Donna Summer and the thing at the Loft was Cathedrals and I think it was like a karmic energy thing. Yeah, now was the time for me to find what my groove really was.
Yeah, definitely.
Because all the other records, if you listen to them, if you buy that CD, all the other records, you can hear, it was like a Paul Anka sound, or it was a Simon & Garfunkel sound, or it was, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. None of it was truly originally me. But when I came out with Cathedrals, it was nothing like it. So,
it was all you.
Yeah. No. That was it. But getting back to Joey, he said about, somebody said to him, "Oh, please, it's so successful. Cathedrals is #1 for the year, but it's a Joey Negro remix. Who expected that?" And Joey said, "I only had the best to work with. Yeah. I only had the most magnificent tracks to work with. Yeah, he said, it wasn't me. It was DC. It was the original creative energy." Yeah. And he said, "Don't kid yourself. You can say it was me all along. No, it wasn't me. It was what I had to work with." And I was like, wow, what a nice thing for him to say, huh?
That's a humble guy, I think, isn't he, Joey? He's a very humble guy.
Well, all I know from Joey is that I went to him first because about 18 years ago, he put out a track called Everybody on Z Records. Yeah. And they sampled Cathedrals. Right. And he paid me. And he paid me for the sample. Yeah. And I was getting money. Everybody was sampling it. Nobody was paying me, Right. And so Joey samples it and pays me. And I went, oh, Z Records, they pay. So when I came up with the idea to do, all about money. When I came up with the idea to do the remix, I said, I'm going to call Joey. Because I know he pays, I know he pays.
Respectful.
I know he pays his artists, So that's why I went with him, and I knew he was a fan. See, because he used Cathedrals as a sample before, so I knew.
Yeah, and paid his respects, paid his dues. Yeah. No, thanks for taking time.
I've never met him. Never had a chance.
One day we'll get you out to the UK, DC. We'll get you out here. Hopefully,
I would love to.
More positive times ahead, hopefully. Thanks for taking time to chat to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We could talk stories about music with you all night, I think, couldn't we, Sean?
Thanks for sharing your experience.
I think you should replace that Giorgio album with Cathedrals, or maybe even T-Dance, or how about Confessions? There's a lot of them you can. Voices of the Night's a great cover.
You know what? I'm going to do that for you, DC, especially. Because you've taken time out for us, I am going to do that for you, all right?
Okay, now have you got a link that I can put this on my Facebook page so that people can watch it again?
Yeah, we post the videos up on a Sunday. We post them up Sundays. We record it midweek and we post them on a Sunday, and then we just put it across the social pages. So don't worry, we'll tag you up in it, and we'll give it a good push. Let people. We want the new generation to learn more about these stories and learn about the guys like yourself that helped create the music we're all enjoying again. So yeah, don't worry, we'll give it a good push for you, DC. No worries.
Well, I've never been to. I was going to be playing in Glasgow.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
right, that's where we are. We're Glasgow.
There's a big festival there every once in a while. Who's the guy who has it? Nicky Siano was going to be playing.
Right.
And he wanted me to perform, and I was going to be doing it until the last minute. I don't know. They just changed the plans.
Don't do this. Don't do this to us. Come on.
Next time.
Yeah, next time.
Well, how are the discos? They have discos in Scotland?
It's
Glitterbox. Are they open now? Are they social distancing or what? What's the story?
Oh, there's not much going on right now. No, there's no clubs at all right now.
Yeah, much not allowed background music in bars and stuff right now. So
Can't
there's
have any,
much no music scene right now.
Are you still the social distancing and masks and everything?
Yeah.
How is the coronavirus thing there? No, in New York City, it's less than 1%.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, for weeks now. Nobody's even dying from it. And I'll tell you something. Just because we know how to not get it here, and we don't give a fuck. We're going to wear our gloves, we're going to wear a mask, and we're going to social distancing because none of us want to die. And all these people around the world, and all the people that in this country who are ignoring the facts and ignoring the suggestions on how to keep yourself safe, are getting it.
Yeah.
You know what my feeling is? They deserve it.
Keep yourself safe. It's very simple.
But you know what? You deserve it. If you're such an idiot that you're told how to do it, you're told you're not going to catch it, and you go out without a mask, you go out with getting kisses to strange girls. Excuse me.
You deserve it.
You deserve to get.
Yes, it's quite strict over here. You have to wear a mask when you're going indoors and into shops and things. It's like a legal thing now.
Me and John can't even visit.
But I don't want to close on a negative note, and I'm not being the prophet of doom, but I don't think it's ever going to be the same.
No, doesn't look likely, does it?
I'm hoping that a vaccine can prevent something. Yeah. They've got Johnson & Johnson has a vaccine now that will prevent it in monkeys.
Right.
Let's hope.
We're getting there slowly but surely.
We're close to monkeys, and maybe... You know what? But that's the kind of vaccine we're going to need, not one that's like with the flu vaccine or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't prevent it. It just makes when you get it, easier for you. Mm-hmm. Now, if they can come up with a vaccine that will prevent it, like they do, if they got it in monkeys, they can prevent it in monkeys.
Yeah,
that's the only solution.
You see,
but then you've got a good billion gazillion people to vaccinate.
Yeah, I kind of smell like a monkey, so maybe that vaccine would work on me. Hopefully,
it probably will.
I'll give it a try. Then I can visit John again after all these months.
No, not if you smell like a monkey.
No, but
I'm not going to say you look like a monkey, though.
I've got the hat on anyway. I put this on especially for the best guests, DC. Only the best guests get this hat.
Thank you very much.
Only the disco royalty, all right. No, thanks.
Well, keep your ear out for this Simon Dunmore Cathedrals project and the new stuff coming from Defected. And you're right. And here I am again, sitting here, 100 years old, and with the hottest dance label on the planet. So...
Long may it continue. Long may it continue, all right? No, thanks for taking time, DC. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again soon. All right, you take care out there.
Stay well. Stay healthy.
Take care, my friend.
Take care. Bye-bye.